When La La Land was released in 2016, critics decided that musicals were making a comeback. And while musicals have never really disappeared, those with original screenplays and music saw a big drop in production after The Sound of Music. The musicals that have been successful have mostly been remakes, jukebox musicals, or they've stuck to the genre's traditions. Even La La Land, which has an original screenplay and music, is an homage to Hollywood's golden era. So while a new generation of moviegoers is falling in love with musicals in their classic form, what's been forgotten is how imaginative, innovative, and just plain weird musicals can be. This wasn't always the case. In the first half of the 20th century, musicals were as common as dramas and comedies. And because there were so many being produced, there was room for experimentation within the genre. This led to the emergence of some really weird subgenres, each providing a unique insight into what was going on in the world when they were made. Here are 5 weird musical subgenres that have been largely forgotten, but that you'll definitely want to Google later. Swimming musicals happened because World War II happened. In the late 1930s, a swimmer named Esther Williams was breaking records in the US and was all set to travel to Helsinki for the 1940 Olympics. Unfortunately, the Games were cancelled due to the outbreak of World War II. Luckily, Esther's million-dollar smile and athletic physique got her a starring role in a traveling aquatic show, where she was spotted by an MGM talent scout. Because of her swimming background, MGM stuck her in a bathing suit. And because Hollywood in the 1940s wasn't exactly known for its subtlety, they threw in song and dance numbers too.
What good is a gal without a guy?
The plots were always ludicrous. In Duchess of Idaho, she plays a swimming star in a nightclub. In Fiesta, she's an aspiring bullfighter who swims. In Easy to Love, she's a swimming performer who's also a clown who's also a secretary.
When does she type? Huh? You said she swims and types.
Not at the same time.
Her films had everything: Technicolor, romance, lavish costumes, and they were box office smashes. They were popular during and just after World War II, when audiences really needed escapism from the grim realities of war. Esther was also a badass. She developed her own line of swimwear, swam with Tom and Jerry, and performed all of her own stunts. She broke her neck performing a 115-foot dive in Million Dollar Mermaid, nearly drowned on set at least twice, and ruptured her eardrums 7 times. She recovered from all of her injuries and lived to the age of 91. The popularity of swimming musicals washed away by the early 50s, but their legacy lives on. In 1984, synchronized swimming became an Olympic sport, with Esther serving as a commentator, and her swimwear line is still popular today. So even though she missed out on her Olympic dream, she ended up making an even bigger splash. After winning 10 world championships and 3 Olympic gold medals, figure skater Sonja Henie set her sights on bringing the sport to an even bigger arena: the movies. In 1936, she told the New York Times, "I want to do with skates what Fred Astaire is doing with dancing." And she got her chance when she signed a contract with 20th Century Fox. Her films had punny titles like Thin Ice and Iceland, and always involved romance, musical numbers, and increasingly elaborate excuses to get Henny on the ice.
What are we going to do?
You'll have to go on in his place.
Oh, Bus, I couldn't.
They mimicked what RKO was doing with the Astaire and Rogers musicals and added the extra spectacle, athleticism, and grace that Sonja could bring. The movies were so popular that MGM tried to replicate their success by casting Joan Crawford in the Ice Follies of 1939. It did not go well. There were no Ice Follies of 1940. Like swimming musicals, the genre's success was directly linked to its star. Both Henie and Williams were top athletes with star quality, not movie stars with athletic ability. Henie retired from movies after 12 films and took her ice show on the road, and by the end of the 40s, the novelty of ice skating musicals had melted away. It's hard to imagine this now, but there was a time when the US president was actively encouraging a reciprocal relationship with Latin American countries. In the 1930s, when it became clear that Europe was heading towards war, Franklin Roosevelt implemented a foreign policy known as the Good Neighbor Policy. The aim was to create economic opportunities and assert US influence in Latin America. Propaganda was a key part of the strategy, so studios were encouraged to produce movies that placed South America in a favorable light.
My friends, I extend felicitations to our South American relations. May we never leave behind us all the common ties that bind us.
The studios were already worried about how the war would affect the European market, so they saw this as an opportunity to break into a new one. The result is a collection of musicals with titles like Down Argentine Way, Weekend in Havana, and Holiday in Mexico. Movies had Latin American elements shoehorned into their settings, music, and costumes, and featured special appearances by talent like Carmen Miranda, Jose Iturbi, and Xavier Cugat. This does not mean that Hollywood was suddenly being inclusive and casting people of color in lead roles. The stars of these movies were people like Betty Grable, Alice Faye, and even Esther Williams. The films were hits in the US and spawned trends in dance, music, and fashion.
The lady in the tutti frutti hat.
But I couldn't find much information on how effective they were in achieving Roosevelt's political intent. What we do know is that the US abandoned the Good Neighbor Policy at the end of World War II, started ramping up hostilities leading up to the Cold War, and the South of the Border musical disappeared by the end of the 40s. Turns out that in this case, cultural appropriation doesn't help international relations. Rollerskating has been around for ages, but it really took off as a subculture in the late 70s. You know what else took off in the late 70s? Disco. Combining disco music with the showmanship of musicals and a complete disregard for realism, rollerskating movies were around for a good time, not a long time. 6 years after freaking out an entire generation of moviegoers in The Exorcist, Linda Blair starred in Roller Boogie, a movie with big hair, tiny costumes, and a soulful roller solo. Other titles in this fleeting pop culture moment include Skate Town USA and Xanadu. Xanadu is a heady mix. Crazy costumes, neon lights, Greek mythology.
Hey, Zeus!
We don't use those old-fashioned names anymore.
It even features musical legend Gene Kelly on skates. Maybe it was all a bit too much, but you have to admire the optimism that led to the decision to capitalize on two such specific trends. It's almost like making a movie about fidget spinners. In the early 60s, movie studios were losing audiences to television, so they scrambled to come up with ways to bring them back into the theaters. Some studios went big, producing epics like Cleopatra, Lawrence of Arabia, and Dr. Zhivago. Others took a less is more approach.
This might be just what the doctor ordered.
Beginning in 1963 with Beach Party, American International Pictures created the Beach Party films, which were specifically designed to appeal to young audiences. Teenagers had become a viable market for movie studios in the 1950s, so AIF decided to target them by appealing to their more baseline instincts. The formula was simple. Cast teen idols Annette Funicello and Frankie Avalon in a comedy set on a beach or anywhere clothing can be kept to a minimum. Throw in the hottest music, fashion, and dance crazes, pay no attention to the screenplay, and add a celebrity appearance. It proved to be a success, so of course major studios like Columbia, MGM, and Paramount produced imitations, and in 5 years, over 30 of these films had been made.
Everybody sing now, yeah, yeah, hallelujah.
Future music legends like Stevie Wonder, James Brown, and the Supremes made appearances, and Frankie and Annette belted out original songs too. Personally, I think the real star of these films is Candy Johnson, a woman who appears in 4 of them as a girl who dances so hard that she literally knocks guys off their feet. Notice how much her outfit moves, but her hair stays perfectly still. The films occupy a commercially friendly middle ground of the youth revolution. Less moral panic-inducing than the Rolling Stones, more risque than Sandra Dee. And although the film's advertising and outfits are suggestive, they never crossed the boundaries of social mores of the time. The genre had run its course by 1967, and Hollywood moved on to other fad-centered movies to appeal to teenagers. But the formula used to produce films for young adults lives on. Think of all the found footage movies after the Blair Witch Project and the YA book adaptations after Twilight. To modern day eyes, these musical subgenres can seem bizarre. but they also provide an interesting snapshot of moments in time. The types of musicals produced now tend to be big blockbusters that stick to genre traditions, but who knows, now that musicals are seeing a resurgence in popularity, it's fun to imagine what musical could capture the zeitgeist of today. Maybe Twitter, the musical, featuring actual trolls. Or the internet, a love-hate musical. Or Singing in the Rain, Drought, Rain, Drought, Rain, Drought, a musical about climate change.